All right. I don't know if you guys are ready for it. Are you guys ready?
I was born ready.
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to Minds Behind the Music. I am your host, LA. Here with me is my co-host, Mason, and Mike from Retrospin Vinyl.
Howdy, y'all.
Now, before I get into the topic, rest in peace to the legendary DMX. He is, compared to a lot of other East Coast rappers, I say he's one of the most underrated.
Yes.
And I plan to do a stream commemorating his life and career on Monday. So tune in for that.
Yes, he X is giving it to him all the way in the heavens.
X has given it to all of us. Now, today is a very special topic that my co-host Mason has actually gave me the idea of, and this particular topic is albums that you can listen to all the way through. Now, what I mean by this is albums that you can put on from start to finish, one song without skipping a single song. Like albums that are just perfection to some people's eyes. And I figured Mike from Retrospin Vinyl, you've definitely got a couple in the vault. So
only a couple. I only pulled out 4 vinyl records here, but I could talk about tons.
Yeah, I definitely know how that is. I definitely got a lot. I got at least 5 of them here that I can name right off the bat. But since Mason inspired me to come up with the topic, I'll have him start with an album.
Oh man, putting me on the spot. I'm gonna go with the one we could probably, at least between you and I, probably talk about the most, and that's Paranoid. 100%, it's got to be Paranoid.
I agree with that. The Black Sabbath Paranoid, their second album, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
I guess he got too paranoid and left.
Yeah. But before he comes back, I gotta start off, or I could go off from what he was saying. Paranoid is definitely that album that I can listen to from start to finish and not like skip a single song. Like there's there's not a single bad song on that album. From what I can name, like it starts with War Pigs, then it starts with Paranoid, and there's the third one. Oh, Planet Caravan. Can never forget Planet Caravan.
You just did.
Yeah. But you should never forget it.
Yeah. No, Paranoid is one of the best Sabbath albums out there.
No doubt. I completely agree with you, no doubt.
If there was one Sabbath album that you didn't have to skip a song with, it's that one. That is one of 2 that come to my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like Master of Reality 4 and their debut all are very high up contenders, but depending on the mood, you could totally skip songs from those. Paranoid is like great all the way through. And I would go as far to say 13 too, if we're talking Sabbath.
Yeah, 13 has some good songs. I think there's definitely a couple. Like I feel like it really blends the Sabbath sound with like Ozzy's voice now, or Ozzy's voice when the album was released, because Ozzy had a distinct change in his voice.
Right.
And but there's a couple albums, actually there are a couple Sabbath albums that I can even say that I can listen to from start to finish and not skip a single song. Master of Reality is definitely another one of those. That album, I can completely admit that there is a single not a single bad song on that album. Before Nick Riccardi spams the chat with memes, I'll give him a shout out. Shout out to Nick Riccardi. How are you doing, man?
Mason's back.
Oh, what happened, Mason?
I had a hiccup.
Oh, no, you're good. What do you have to say about Paranoid? Because Mike and I were talking about Sabbath and Paranoid.
When I first discovered it, I mean, I had to be in maybe like middle school, so I didn't really know much about music or anything. I mean, I could play like power chords, some blues licks, but But I don't know. It was the first album where, exactly like the topic of the podcast. I mean, man, I could listen to that thing all the way through.
Mhm.
I don't know what it is about it, and even the tracks that people probably wouldn't associate with them, like Planet Caravan. I mean, it's like my favorite track on that whole album, if I'm being completely honest. Just like that whole jazz sphere thing happening on that album, behind the heaviness of it. And I don't know, it was the first album that I really like discovered, even if everybody knows it, kind of.
Yeah. I think that I had a similar phase like you because Black Sabbath is one of my favorite bands, and if I've mentioned this on the show that that Geezer Butler, I love Geezer Butler. He's one of my all-time favorite players, and I have to agree with you. Paranoid is definitely one of those albums where like you can just listen to all the way through and not get bored of it like one bit, and it really blends. It blends that heavy metal sound that Black Sabbath was known for with other sounds like psychedelic, like psychedelia sounds, like blues sounds, and it does it in a way that no other band, especially like it does it in a way that no other like band, including heavy metal or hard rock, has really done in that time.
That's kind of why like their Sabbath's first two albums are as iconic as they are too.
I agree with that. Um, did you have anything else you wanted to say about that, Mike? That you wanted to say about Paranoid?
Well, something's good about Paranoid when the only Sabbath song I ever learned how to play on guitar was from Paranoid. I can only play Iron Man by Sabbath on guitar, so
I think the first Sabbath song that I've learned completely on bass was Hand of Doom.
well, which hand, the right or the left?
In this case, I think I'd be right because if you're talking about like the type of playing, I'm right-handed.
There you go.
Bass
Mike,
fingers.
yeah.
These fingers.
And fun fact about Geezer Butler, he was originally a guitar player too, and I know that guitar players that play bass have like a really bad reputation. But the reason why he started playing with his fingers was because he saw Jack Bruce playing with his fingers, and he thought like, "Wow, that was actually cool." And then he ended up doing it himself.
You can kind of hear it in his playing, like the way that he plays the scales and riffs are very not bass player like. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe it's the way that he kind of seems to slide around the pentatonic scale. I think is really what kind of cues me in. But I always thought that it was like I could, which I didn't even know until you told me that. But after you told me, like it clicked, like it made sense. I could always kind of get cued in by that whenever I heard him play.
Yeah, and
it's kind of interesting because like Sabbath and a lot of rock bands, the bass is always ignored. Like people don't really realize these little goodies either.
Yeah, and this is all I gotta say for the people that don't appreciate bass playing.
The fans deserve better.
That's really, and the thing is, a lot of people approach bass playing as like a lower guitar, which in my opinion, it should never be approached as that. And I think
those people are incels.
A lot of people that play, that actually listen to Black Sabbath and take the time to, analyze Geezer Butler or pick his brain, will say that like he knows how a bass is supposed to be played. He creates tension when it's needed. He isn't that similar to the guitar. He is similar when it needs to be similar to the guitar, but he also has his distinct differences in order to sound unique and sound like his own instrument, along with creating unique rhythms, unique melodies along with it, and keeping his bass playing in key while doing so, which is a pretty difficult task, I would have to say, and staying on those root notes while creating your own riffs while a guitarist is kind of doing his own thing. Like it's
Oh yeah,
definitely an art form.
I'm sure. I mean, I've never played bass, but I mean, I could play Money by Pink Floyd on my guitar, so I guess it's similar. I mean, I could be very wrong. You two play bass, I don't, so correct me if I'm wrong. But
I mean, it uses the minor pentatonic, like what Mason was bringing up before.
true.
But to the next record, Mike, what I'll have you go next. What record do you have that you would say is great all the way through?
I'm gonna choose the most generic one to show first and talk about of all of them.
All right.
Beatles, Abbey Road.
Ah, yes.
Oh man, the GOAT.
I mean, this is kind of one of those very first albums of rock history, very similarly to Black Sabbath's Paranoid, that one can consider this status. Because, yeah, there were some albums that came out before it in the Beatles' discography, as well as others. But really, I think Abbey Road is really the pioneer of the flawless perfection album. I mean, if not for nothing, but like they also created the medley. Like the
rock
ending
opera.
of this album, or at least mainstream medley, I should say. I'm sure people were doing it beforehand, but mainstream medley. I mean, you go into like, You Never Gave Me Your Money into the end. I mean, nothing makes me smile more than hearing that medley. I mean, I think it's fun, kind of entertaining how the song "Golden Slumbers" is supposed to be a lullaby, and then of course he's yelling, "Golden slumbers fill your eyes." No, that's not a lullaby. You're gonna wake up any fucking baby you hear. But, but you know, I mean, a lot of people know this album for like the hits. I mean, everybody knows "Come Together," "Something," "Oh Darling," "Octopus's Garden," "Because," and "Here Comes the Sun."
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, even though those are fantastic parts in this album, and the entire thing is perfection. Like, and you know, this was recorded during some of the Beatles' most traumatic, and turmoilatic, if that's even a word, time in their history. And to be able to put this out and to have such a great message at the end of the song, the end, and the love you make is equal to the love you give and all that stuff. That's such a great message to be your final album. Yeah, I know Let It Be came on, but that's from re-recordings of stuff that they did during the White Album sessions in that era. So it doesn't really, it counts, but doesn't count. It's their ending album. Guess kind of like people could argue that with Coda and Tattoo You, but
with a Division Bell by Pink Floyd.
Oh, true. Yeah. Actually, no, I wouldn't say the Division Bell. I'd say more the Endless River.
Oh yeah, that like compilation album that they released.
Yeah. But yeah, this album. There's not a single bad thing about this album, and this is an original 1969 pressing. But I have the 2019 50th anniversary remaster. I mean, you hear things in that remaster that you never hear before. You can really. The thing that probably stood out the most with the modern reissue of it is Octopus's Garden. Obviously, it's a Ringo Starr vocal song, so it's nothing too immaculate there. But, like, you get, like, all these sound effects that were kind of buried in the mix, but there, and you'd notice if they were gone. But they were more predominantly in the forefront. Like, you hear all these bubbles in the background that are simulating the Octopus's Garden you're in. I mean, you're hearing some of the background vocals that have that gargling kind of vibrato effect on it. Like, you're just hearing all these great things. And yeah, I will be the first to admit that I heard the song "Come Together" from Aerosmith in the cover of it before I heard the Beatles version. But I'll tell you, if you know the Aerosmith version, check out the Beatles version. Your socks will be across the room.
I actually first I heard the Beatles version and then I heard Michael Jackson's version before.
Michael Jackson did a version?
Yeah, on the compilation album Past and Present. The one that has "You Are Not Alone" and "Smile."
Oh, History Volume 1, Past, Present, Future, that one?
Yeah, that one.
Huh. I didn't know that, but I haven't heard that release in a very long time, so.
And Apparently, I didn't know this, but the song "Something" from Abbey Road is the second most covered Beatles song.
What's the first one?
Yesterday.
That's what I kind of figured, but I had to ask just to be sure. I did not know something was the second most covered one, but I'm not surprised. And you know what? It's really disappointing when the Beatles had broken up, because if this is the album that John Lennon and Paul McCartney went, oh shit, we should have paid more attention to George Harrison's songwriting.
Yeah, because he was like the Beatles' best kept secret, and this album was pretty much an obvious sign of that. I think, like, with even like composition wise, not just his vocals or
Oh,
his
yeah.
lyrics, but just like his arrangements too. Like Here Comes the Sun has a very unique use of odd time, like that doom 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 doom. Like I think that's in 5, and then it goes back to 4, which is pretty uncommon, I would say, for regular like pop rock or regular rock music from the 60s.
Or in this era, because you don't, I mean, sure, when you start talking about late 60s, early 70s with prog rock, then, oh yeah, that, I mean, all rules are broken. But then, from a generic rock band, you don't get that. And like, to your point with the composition stuff too, like, look at the opening riff. I know I keep going to Octopus's Garden, but like the main opening riff to Octopus's Garden, bada 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 bum bum, like that's just fantastic. Or the ending solo for the song "The End," like,
and there, I think that the lead guitar on that album is some of the best lead guitar stuff that I've ever heard out of any artist or any band. Like there's so many. There's Something that has I love the solos on Something. I love Come Together's lead guitar, and I love the I Want You. She's So Heavy.
I want you, I want you so bad, it's driving me mad. Oh, yeah,
Such a great song.
uh-huh.
I think I will have to agree with you. I think that there's not a single bad song off of Abbey Road.
No, and I'll fight anybody who says otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Sgt. Pepper, but that one, I guess, because of I've been blasting that album since 6th grade, I kind of get sick of it at this point. Abbey Road is one of my favorite albums of all time, and you know, you just, it just doesn't get old.
Yeah, that's honestly how I felt about Let It Be, because I used to listen to Let It Be religiously when I was a senior in high school, and I think that Let It Be has some of the most beautiful songwriting. But I think where the Beatles truly shined as like songwriters and performers, like where their big, like their peak was, I would have to say would be Abbey Road.
Which is really a shame. I mean, I agree. There were other great times in their history that they definitely most certainly shined, but Abbey Road was the beginning of the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
And for reference, you talked about Let It Be. That's probably my least favorite. Well, that is my least favorite Beatles album, and definitely my least favorite later Beatles album.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't really say what my least favorite Beatles album is. I think it would probably be either Hard Day's Night or Help.
Oh, Help is one of my favorites. Hard Day's Night, I can see that, yeah. Well, my question is this. The US or UK versions are we talking about?
Good question. I would say the US version I'm not a big fan of.
Okay.
Mason, do you have anything you want to say about Abbey Road? Like, is there anything that in particular that shines to you, that shines the most to you from that album?
Well, I guess probably I was never really introduced to it, right? I mean, like all throughout high school, I almost kind of rejected listening to the Beatles just because, like, I trying to figure out the best way to put this, right? All throughout high school, I kind of rejected listening to the Beatles because, not that they never appealed to me, but just because it was like they were on this certain pedestal, and
Oh, yeah.
it's like everybody resorts to, oh yeah, the Beatles, like they're up here, they're the almost the epitome of what a rock band is, you know. And
Oh, yeah.
because of that, I almost kind of rejected listening to them for a long time, way longer than I should have. But I never hated any of their songs, and especially when it got to Abbey Road. I mean, you can't see it, but I got a poster of Abbey Road hanging on my wall, right? And for the album specifically, I mean, I'd probably, in terms of favorite song, definitely I Want You. Definitely. I mean, that song, it's almost, it's jammy, you know, it's almost kind of got like this Latin thing going on, you know, and, and music like that appeals to me. And if I had to, I mean, the medley, I mean, come on, like you can't, that was Paul's baby. And it just, it's just a beautiful piece of artwork, you know. Capping it off, I mean, if I had to be honest, Her Majesty. It's just so, it's just so out of the blue, and I don't think that's my favorite thing about that album, but it's like, it's definitely like one of the moments where I'm like, all right, yeah, come on, bring it to me, come on.
Yeah, because the Beatles, I mean, that was there accidentally. The recording engineer who was getting the final mixes all together forgot to stop the tape before that went on, and then, well, here it is at the end of the album, the extra 40-some seconds into it. It's actually interesting because that Her Majesty was actually going to be part of the medley originally, but it ended up being removed. There's actually versions on the 50th anniversary box set. They have recordings of it with it in there and without, and then like 500 takes of Paul singing "Her Majesty is a pretty nice girl," and blah, 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 blah. But
yeah, I've heard some of those. It's funny to hear the differences and all the different takes, not even just from Abbey Road, but from anything that they've done, period. It's funny to hear all the different iterations of things and how it kind of molded into the final form of what the song would come out as.
Oh yeah, I mean the White Album, like 50th anniversary collection with all those Escher demos, like that could play as its own album within itself.
Yeah.
And some of the original acoustic demos are better than what came out on the White Album. I love the White Album as much as I love Abbey Road, but
I would honestly have to say that I honestly have to agree with that too. I think I like how there's so many there's like hundreds and hundreds of takes of different like vocal parts, guitar parts, and bass parts in Abbey Road. And to what Mason was saying earlier, I think that everyone, or at least a lot of people that were like huge rock listeners, had that phase where it's like, you worship the I can't understand why people worship the Beatles. Like I was in that phase where I was like avoiding listening to them because of how like hyped they were. But when I got around to them, you can slowly start to appreciate why they were famous, and you could start to understand why they were like a big band like they were. And this album in particular was that big band, that why they're appreciated.
Yeah, and like they're one of my favorite bands, but even I'll say there are times where they're way overhyped.
Yeah. Before we go on to the next record, is there anything you guys want to say about Abbey Road, or anything else you guys want to say?
All hail Abbey Road.
And one more thing I gotta say for I Want You and what Mason was saying, I completely agree with that. It's really jammy, and every time I hear like the guitar and the bass, like the lead guitar and the bass, like in the intro, this is how I get.
Yeah, boy.
I had to do that just once because that's legit how I feel about I Want You.
All right, Lewis. So now here's a challenge for you. Now you have to do the longest "Yeah, boy." Beat that kid.
Yeah, I won't do that right now, but I will. I'll do that one of these days on this show.
Do compare and contrast. You're doing it at the exact same time as the video.
Yeah.
Winner gets the prize.
Yeah. I'll do that. A sweepstakes or bring someone on the show, see how long they can do the yeah boy. All right. So this record that I want to bring up is this is by the second band that Paul Rogers was in, not Free, but the one after it. And the record that I want to talk about is Bad Company, their debut album.
Oh yeah.
And I could honestly say every single song on that album is good. Like I can't even say that one. Not just me. I don't just think that one song is bad. I don't just think that there isn't a single song that's bad. I think that every single song on that album is good, like all the way through. And I remember, I think I was making dinner one time. And I just I plugged into my phone into a Bluetooth speaker, and I just decided, I was like, okay, I'll play the beginning of Bad Company, and I'll play the beginning of the Bad Company's debut album, which is Can't Get Enough. And then I start hearing the second song, I'm like, this song's good too. And then I start hearing the third song, and I'm like, they really knew what they were doing on this record. And it's like every song has like such an enjoyable hook to like the beginning of each song that like you can't help but enjoy it. Like Can't Get Enough, like Can't Get Enough, the title song, what is it, there's another song that from that album,
It's not Shooting Star.
No, Shooting Stars from Straight Shooter, which is another great album of Bad Company.
Shooting Star Straight Shooter? Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah, Shooting Stars from Straight Shooter, because I love their first two albums. I think are just absolute perfection. Ready for Love, and Don't Let Me Down. Though Don't Let Me Down is such a beautiful song. And,
Seagull and Moving On were also popular too. I just pulled up the track listing.
Yeah, Moving On is a great tune. What do you call it? Yeah, Seagull's that acoustic song that ends the album. But I would say the one thing that I really enjoyed about this album was it really showed them, hey, we are this band. This is no nonsense hard rock. We are Bad Company, and this is what we sound like. And to have such a debut album like that is just extraordinary. Like, when you really think about it, there's only a handful of albums that you could really, or debut albums that you can name of that were just like that were just like big and like great. Like Boston's debut album, Guns N' Roses' debut album. While I admit I'm not a big fan of Guns N' Roses, I can't deny that their debut album was popular for a reason. And there's another one that Led Zeppelin 1. I mean, at the time when it came out, it probably wasn't as popular, but I think nowadays people are starting to really appreciate that album.
Yeah.
But Bad Company is definitely on that list, and I think even like performance wise, I don't think it gets as much praise as say The Who or Led Zeppelin for, each band member sounding the way that they do, because Paul Rogers is just, on a technical level, he is the perfect vocalist. I think that he is absolutely, like, he's one of the greatest of all time, not just in rock, but in just singing in general.
Dude, the guy's like 70 something and he can still kick it out.
He still had a
range when he was 20.
I was about to say he still is. Like, I don't know if either of you guys have heard the live album that came out a couple of years ago, live at Red Rocks, but holy smokes, he still got it.
He still has his range, and I'm like, it's one of those instances where it's like these people need to be analyzed in a lab to see like how they still have the range. Like Paul Rogers from Bad Company and Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. Those are the two people that you really gotta take them to a lab and analyze them and see how how could they still sing as good as they did in their prime.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And now I'm gonna bet, even though I haven't heard every Bad Company release, I've heard most of them, and I'd venture to say Bad Company really didn't have a bad album.
I gotta listen to more Bad Company, but I would have to say my favorites of all time are definitely the first two Bad Company albums. And their first one, I would have to say, is probably my all-time favorite. Their first album, and when and to really relate to what I was talking about with performance, like everything is just where it needs to be. The guitar has enough space. The bass is like not overcomplicated, but it's still groovy. Like there's still enough energy in the bass to where it's like contrasting with the guitars. And of course we got the four on the floor drums like Simon Kirk, who was also Free's drummer as well as Paul Rogers was Free's vocalist.
Oh yeah.
But, what do you guys have to say about their debut album? Or Mike, I know you were talking about saying that Bad Company hasn't released a bad album.
Yeah, I really have to say that like everything on that album is just pure perfection. Even the deep cuts that people don't necessarily know, they're fun, they're jammy. And coming from a musician standpoint, I like doing things like listening to an album and just play my guitar over it, just random BS solo, whatever. I used to do that all the time with British Steel and American Idiot. In recent days, I've done that a lot with Straight Shooter, come to speak of Bad Company, and Allman Brothers, Brothers and Sisters. But like, it's just a fun, jammy album that you could jam to, have a good time with. There's really no other way to put it. It's that simple and that to the point.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the deep cuts are what make that song shine. That would make that album shine even more. Like the Way I Choose from that song that plays after Bad Company. The horn section really strengthens that song, and I think Don't Let Me Down, there's a horn section, and Ready for Love, I believe there's a horn section, and it's like everything is just like it just sounds so beautiful the way it's arranged.
Oh yeah, and the ballad title track and band name Bad Company, one of the best rock ballads out there.
Oh, without a doubt, no cap. Like I I don't mind Five Finger Death Punch's version, but it's nothing like the original.
No.
I like the energy that the original has is far different from the one that Five Finger Death Punch's version has.
But the Five Finger Death Punch version is pretty good though too. Like I was surprised by it.
Yeah. It's their version is great. I think their version is I really enjoy their version, but if I had to choose between the two of them, the original is better. Bad Company
Absolutely.
is like it's raw, authentic, and just so many things about it that I enjoy. But Mason, you wanted
I think
to say something?
ironically, the original sounds darker almost. You know what I mean? Like Five Finger Death Punch covered it, and it's like, yeah, you got like, all right, that deep growling vocal, down-tuned guitars, and it's like you can tell that they're trying to capture that dark, mysterious, almost like a like. I mean, I would the image that I get in my head because of the lyrics is like a Western setting, a very dark Western theme happening, and I think it's so ironic that the original has such this dark, ghostly vibe, and this metal band that downtunes and has this dark, growling vocalist doesn't seem to capture as well that dark, ghostly vibe. I just always thought that was funny. Like I can listen to the original and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm almost kind of like a little spooked, and and the chorus when the guitar comes in, it's like it's such a bang, whereas in the Five Finger Death Punch version, it's like you already got the guitars way down-tuned, and you got this dark voice. It's almost like there's nothing impactful happening when there's that big explosion, in the chorus and subsequent.
Yeah, and I feel like Five Finger Death Punch's version has more of a military vibe to it, while Bad Company's version has more of a Western vibe to it, and I kind of prefer that Western vibe because, like, I think the way that Paul Rogers sings too is like really soulful and southern,
Hmm.
and it fits the song, and it's just like I said, it's raw and authentic, and I think that's what makes the song shine even more.
Yeah.
I would like to play devil's advocate for half a second. And that I love their first two albums, and it's easy listening, and you can pop it on, and you can just kind of like sit back and go like, oh yeah, this is a jam, you know. I would like to play devil's advocate with Mick Ralphs and his some of his lead guitar playing, where I feel like it bothers me only slightly, like maybe like that much, that he seems to play the same lead licks
Sometimes,
like,
yeah.
over and over and over again. Mostly I've noticed in their bigger hits, but that's the only thing that bothers me about that album or others. But it's almost like I don't think I would ever play a Bad Company song, but I would put it on and listen to it all day. You know, I think that's the best way to put it for me.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Motley Crue as well. Like, I have nothing. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna get this out of the way. I have nothing but respect for that band, for Motley Crue, but like Nikki Sixx's bass playing, I just cannot stand. Like, he plays the same bass lines. He's played the same bass lines for the past 30 years, and it's just, I don't know. It's just not my thing. And again, this isn't because I have a disdain towards Motley Crue. It's just like it gets a little jarring to hear. And I know that's probably how you feel about Mick Ralphs. And again, I'm not trying to say that Nikki Sixx is bad. It's just a lot of his bass lines are very similar to each other, and I just can't really seem to enjoy that as much.
I mean, even the same with the guitar riffs in Motley Crue. Like, you hear the guitar riff of "Looks That Kill," and you've heard most of their riffs.
Yeah.
Before we go to the next record, is there anything else you want to say about? Is there anything else you guys want to say about Bad Company?
You're not in bad company while listening to Bad Company.
I agree with that, especially
Another
the
zinger.
first two albums. Yeah, we gotta have more puns. But I gotta agree with that. Their first two albums are hands down I think are their best. Like Bad Company and Straight Shooter are hands down my two of my favorites by them. Was there something back to Mason? What is the other record that you mentioned? I know there's one that you talk about, or that you've praised, and it's actually been it's played a little bit of a part in our songwriting too.
Yeah, if y'all don't know, these guys are in a band together and they're fantastic. And I even got to see them live. They rock.
Thank you.
Too kind. Far too kind.
Well, so that would be The Cars by The Cars. That came out in 1978. Yeah, 1978. And my good God. All right, look. If I'm being completely honest, I don't much care for anything that The Cars put out after Candio. I mean, that, couple good songs here and there. Granted, I haven't listened to every album, but
Me with Bad Company.
But their debut, good God, I don't know how to put it into. I don't think I can evoke the feeling that I get when I listen to that album into like concrete, strings of sentences. But I'm gonna try. So it's like it has this like overwhelming, almost live feel to it. Like I can listen to it and it's almost like they're there, you know, like playing for me, like I'm at a party, man, you know, like it's such good, really good vibes. I mean,
The good times are rolling.
Say again?
The good times are rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times roll. One of my favorites from that album too.
I mean, you got the one that everybody knows, Just What I Needed, which, like, all right, hands down has one of the best guitar solos ever written. I mean, he just plays, he plays almost kind of like George Harrison. I mean, he's in, you know, he makes a statement, he's out. And I appreciate that, like beyond words. Like, you know, there are a lot of guitarists, and I'm absolutely guilty of this quite often, who will just kind of like go on and go on and go on. And I can appreciate somebody who will lay down a statement. There's something said, you know what I mean? And not even just that song. I mean, every song on that album, and even extending past the solos, all of the licks and the little arpeggiated riffs that are going on in the background. I mean, it's all there for a reason. It's a statement. And I mean, the bass playing is like phenomenal. The between Benjamin Orr and Rick Ocasek, I mean, they're just like two very distinct voices that you can't get out of your head. You know what I mean? Like very like nasty almost, but beautifully nasty.
I like that with this album, it's very much like the instruments play what needs to be played rather than, you know, how one instrument could sound or how a certain song can make an instrument sound. Like for example, Van Halen. They're one of the biggest they started a generation of guitarists, and they started the whole glam metal craze. But they were a band that was made to have Eddie Van Halen, put Eddie Van Halen on the pedestal, make him sound good. 90% of the time it was just Eddie Van Halen. He was the center, he was the star of the show when it came to that band. Like I think each member is great, but it's one of those bands where it's like, okay, this is to make Eddie Van Halen sound good. With this album, or with this group, the Cars, they figured out a way to make each instrument sound great in their own unique individual way. Like Bye Bye Love, that's a great example of Benjamin Orr's bass playing, I think. Just like the way that he holds back, and the way that he chooses when to go ham with the beginning of Bye Bye Love, that ding 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 ding. But it fits with the rhythm, and it's still the foundation of the song, because the bass, like, it's supposed to be the foundation. It's supposed to be the instrument that kind of puts everything else together, or the glue that puts everything else together. And along with his vocals in the song, it's just a nice complement together.
And you can't forget about the keyboard and synthesizers. I mean, sure, Just What I Needed is their generic and most notable song, but there's a reason why that synth is so iconic and so good on that thing. Just like what Mason was saying in regards to making a statement. Bum 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 ba ba bum. There's a reason. And I'll tell you, I'll never forget the first time I heard. There's 3 albums that I'll never forget the first time hearing them on vinyl record after hearing them on CDs for years. And the Cars debut album is one of them, because that synth, you could tell a difference on vinyl record versus CD. The other 2 albums, if you guys care, would be Point of No Return by Kansas. Hearing Dust in the Wind on vinyl record nearly put a tear to my eye the first time. And then Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, the guitar riff on the opening track, Bark at the Moon, the reverb, you can't hear it the way you hear it on vinyl record. Holy smokes. But
song,
Yeah.
Song for America, the song by Kansas from the album Song for
Mhm.
America, it sounds beautiful on vinyl. I just
I
want to
haven't heard it on vinyl, but I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I believe I have an '80s re-release of it, but I think that version of Song for I think that version on vinyl is just the title track is beautiful. But
Good stuff.
to what you were saying about the Cars, I think that it's one of those songs that it's like they know how to. It's rock, but it's also pop at the same time, and it
Mhm.
started the whole genre called new wave, which they were one of the first few bands to start new wave or make new wave popular. And
Yeah.
when you think about it, not none of the instruments are really like going ham. They're not shredding or anything like that. Even the guitars, like the guitars are
Oh
playing
yeah.
what's necessary, and even the keyboards, they're just mostly doing riffs. And but it's good. It's good, and it's like it's pleasing to the ears. I think.
It gives you an eargasm for a reason.
Yeah. um, did you have something you wanted to say about that, Mason? About the instrumentation?
Oh yeah, definitely. The way that the guitars move between each other, I mean, it is quite literally like a prime example of what happens when you have a good lead and rhythm dichotomy. I mean, it is just the way that. All right, let me put it this way: you can listen to Just What I Needed, right?
Mhm.
And there are, especially in the first verse, there are differences in the rhythms being played, right? Whereas Okasik is just playing power chord, structured power chords. What's his name? Easton. Um, he's playing the same chord but in different voicings, and in some cases arpeggiating them. And
Mhm.
and then he plays his lead where he plays it. I already said that he's making a statement. But outside of lead playing, when you have two good examples of when guitars come together and have different voicings on the chord to make something that you couldn't with one guitar. I mean, another good example would be Stradlin and Slash. I mean, say, hey, Slash played his lead, whatever, but when he's not, they worked in perfect harmony to make something fuller, almost something that you could orchestrate on a piano. You know what I mean? Like there's more voicing options between the two of them, and it's just something. When you have two guitars, use it, and they really made full use of that. And that's not even speaking about, again, Benjamin Orr's bass or
Mhm.
the synth. I mean, Mike, you said there's a clear difference between listening on CD and vinyl with how you would perceive the synth. And I agree with that 100%. I have the Cars on vinyl, and I don't know what it is. I don't know the science behind it. I couldn't tell you. I'm sure you could. But 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 there's just something that without it, it wouldn't be the same. I mean, I could sit here all night and tell you how great the guitars are and how great the vocals are and how great the bass is. But without those synth lines, I mean, it wouldn't be half as good. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would
Thank you for
also like
coming to my TED Talk.
I would also like to mention, and this will probably piss off the fingerstyle elitists, but that bass tone, the bass tone on on the Cars debut album is actually really good. Like the pick bass tone. I'll see if I could. I'm gonna pull up a isolated bass. Well, this is isolated bass and vocals, but I'm only gonna play the bass. You guys can hear that, right?
Oh yeah.
I
I
Like
I
it-
love
it
that
remind-
fuzz. It almost has like a dead bass tone to it, and then
Yeah.
there's like a little bit of like overdrive or fuzz to it going on. I love that tone.
Mhm. I like it's very reminiscent of like say Chris Squire from
Mm.
Yes, like you know how his pick bass tone is.
Oh yeah.
It's just very much so like it's like you could tell it's being played with a pick, but it's like it's not the sound of the pick hitting the string is not very overbearing, and like the low end is just like you could hear that low end. It's loud and clear, and
Yeah. And like in that same tone, you could even hear sometimes throughout Rush too. I don't know if they play with a pick or not. That's something that you guys would know better than me, but
Mhm.
you hear that same tone without some of their stuff, especially in moving pictures. Even most predominantly, I hear it a lot with. I mean, you can hear it throughout, of course, but for those who are at home and know very little Rush, I would have to say moving pictures for you.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's finger style. I can't recall if Geddy Lee has played with a pick at all during his career. From what I remember, it's mostly finger style.
Okay.
To what Mason was saying about the guitar track before we go into the last thoughts of this album, I wanted to show the isolated guitar track as well because I gotta show the guitar some love. But let's hear what it has. Let's hear what it sounds like. I like how it's like octaves.
Oh yeah.
I like how each I do see what you mean, Mason. Like each guitar is complementing each other. Like one's doing a higher riff and the other's doing a lower riff, and you could hear the distinct. It might also be because they panned the guitars, which might have made like that sound, which might have made each sound stand out even more.
Actually, I'd also have to argue that it's important to know when to lay out. I mean, I've been in only a handful of situations where I've played with other guitarists in a band setting. But every time that I have, either I was at a point where I thought that I had to play the whole time, or I was with somebody else who thought that they had to play the whole time. And it just adds a lot of clutter. Like even there, during the chorus effect, I'm not sure which one of them plays that, but the other person is laying out. It's like, know when to lay out. Don't add clutter where it doesn't need to be added, and add clutter where it does.
Yeah.
Practically.
This isn't free jazz, y'all.
Freeform jazz.
What's the key signature? Yes.
What before we go on to Mike's next record, what do you guys have anything else you want to say about the Cars? By the
Just don't
Cars?
steal your best friend's girl.
Huh?
Just don't steal your best friend's girl.
Yeah. And but do let the good times roll.
Let's drive from this topic over to Mike's next album.
Yeah. What other album you got?
Well, we started from driving, but we ended up walking down the Yellow Brick Road with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
That is hands down my favorite Elton John record.
This is not only my favorite Elton John album, but one of my favorite albums of all time too. I actually have the 40th anniversary CD box set as well. But this, oh man. Well, first of all, if I was to have to say there's a perfect side to an album, side A of this, holy, Funeral for a Friend into Love Lies Bleeding, Candle in the Wind, Benny and the Jets. Need I say more? Need I say more? Now, for those who are expecting what Elton John was doing up until this point, if you're expecting a Honky Cats or the Rocket Man's, a Your Song, Border Song, all that stuff, you'll get that here and there, but you are not getting that. Elton John went rock. It's not just piano ballads. Yes, Candle in the Wind is one of the most beautiful songs of all time ever written, in my opinion. You're getting the Elton John you're used to hearing. But Elton John, something that people don't realize about Elton John is he's very technologically phobic, like technophobic. I don't know, but what the word would be. But he wanted to try synth sounds, hence Funeral for a Friend. And, Funeral for a Friend, just like the medley on the Beatles' Abbey Road, or Just What I Needed from the Cars, it just gives you that feel-good, shit-eating grin, makes you feel great. Even though it's windy and whispery and very quiet with like a lone bell, and then you have this quiet little organ synth kind of thing going, and then you get into the vroom, boom, boom. Oh man, it gives you goosebumps every time. There's not many things I could say that about, but it just gets you. I mean, and of course it goes into a rock and roll, Love Lies Bleeding, In Your Arms. Bum, 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 it's just so fun. And then you go into the song Candle in the Wind. Now, if you're not really paying attention, you might not really know what it means. You just might think, oh, it's about a lost lover and all that stuff, or it's someone who's died. Well, it is about someone who died, but it's specifically about Marilyn Monroe, if you're paying attention. For the longest time when I was younger, when I first discovered this album, I never understood why the heck is Marilyn Monroe in this, in this gatefold. It just didn't make sense to me. I was like, out of all of the people, well, Candle in the Wind.
He says, goodbye, Norma Jean, and I believe that's Marilyn Monroe's real name.
That's because it is. It is her real name. It tells the story of Marilyn Monroe and her life, really. And then, of course, everybody knows Benny and the Jets. Benny, yeah.
I love that.
And, I mean, the other two hits off this album would be the title track Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, another great rocker. And Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is another fun, well, actually I can't say fun like Candle in the Wind, but another great ballad like Candle in the Wind. And yeah, everybody knows this stuff, but like, I'll tell you, if you guys like the Beach Boys, check out the song Your Sister Can't Twist But She Could Rock and Roll. There is some very Beach Boy-esque influences clearly in that song. You have I don't even know, it's just all so great. There's an Alice in Wonderland song with a song called All the Girls Love Alice. We have a song that as I grow older, I'm just like, wow, you really had to call the song that, Jamaica Jerk Off. I'm just like, really? You called it that? Yeah. But when I'm younger, I don't think anything of it. But then you're older and you're like, it's just great. And two of the most underrated songs on this album, I'd have to say, would be the Ballad of Danny Bailey, 1909 till 34, Harmony, and I've seen that movie too. All just great. And the imagery on this album is great too. Like all this artwork with these lyrics, it's just great. I just love it.
All right. Before I speak my piece about Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I'm gonna play this again.
Yeah, boy.
I cannot deny that has been that. Honestly, that album alone is what got me to like really start listening to Elton John. Well, that and Madman Across the Water, but it was this album first. And
I gave you Madman Across the Water on vinyl record.
Yeah, I actually have two versions of Madman Across the Water. The one that my dad gave me and the one that you gave me. The one of the first Elton John songs that I learned on piano was "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road."
I love playing that song. It's such a fun one.
Oh yeah, I love that song. I think I would have to say that one, either that one or "Leave On" are my favorite Elton John songs. Those two are like my top two favorite Elton John songs.
I don't even know what my favorite Ellen John song would be. If I had to choose this moment, I'd have to say "Candle in the Wind," but they're or your song. But he's one of those acts that really didn't put out a bad song, generally speaking.
I think another great song from this album that like really grew on me. It's more of a deep cut Elton John song, but it really grew on me. "Gray Seal."
Oh, oh yeah.
Yeah, tell me, "Gray Seal, how do you feel?" It's just so like, it's so exuberant, and it's just like, it's such a like an energetic tune that like it gets you like really pumped.
Oh yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say about this album, Mason? Anything in particular?
So I'm a bit of an outsider here because I've never I've never taken a whole lot of time to listen to Elton John. Probably because being a guitar player mostly, although I love Davy Johnstone, I think he's a pretty good guitarist. Although I can offer a little anecdote for you. So from this album, I'm not straying off topic. I think it was last year's New Year's Eve or something, right? So 2019. And I remember I had just gotten home from vacation. Got home, I was going to a New Year's party that night. Wow, remember when we could do that?
Yeah.
And and I remember I was getting ready. I forget whatever I was doing, but I had the radio on. And on the radio, they were playing the entirety of Funeral for a Friend and Love Lies Bleeding. And holy friggin' crap. I mean, good Lord, like I had never attributed Elton John with something like that, you know?
No.
And I was hearing it.
Piano ballads.
Say again?
Everyone thinks of piano ballads with Elton John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to admit I fall into that category. I should listen to him more. In fact, you've inspired me. I'm going to do that right after the podcast.
Awesome.
But
Across the Water and his self-titled album, I'd recommend.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and Honky Chateau. Definitely check those albums out.
And it's an entire discography for that matter.
I've heard some songs off of a Funky Chateau, and I really dig everything that I heard. And I'm just gonna put it out there. My favorite song that I heard off that album is "I Think I'm Gonna Kill Myself."
Dude, that is my favorite song from that album. It's a guilty pleasure. I feel so wrong about it, but I love the song.
It's just so catchy too. Like the way they have the chorus.
I think I'm gonna kill myself, have myself a suicide. Oh yeah.
So I used to work at Panera, and when I had that song in heavy rotation for a while, and I was sitting there making food right on the line with a knife in my hand going, "Think I'm gonna kill myself, 'cause a little suicide." My manager came up and was like, "You're okay, right?"
Your answer should have been no. I'm still working at Panera.
Yeah.
Oh,
Touche.
man.
But
So you weren't only singing it in your head; you were singing it out loud.
yeah, I again, I had it in my rotation, right? So I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just singing, "I think I'm gonna kill myself." Yeah, not one of my shining moments, but it's a good story.
Yeah,
Oh, it's a great story and a
I
great
agree.
song. Like,
Love it.
Right, but I mean, as much as I attribute Elton John to the piano ballads, I know that he's more than that.
Mhm.
And again, I mean, my mind was blown when I heard "Funeral for a Friend" and "Love Lies Bleeding," and every time that comes on, I'm like, my mouth still drops. Like I
yeah,
still get the same feeling.
you can't fight this feeling any longer.
Exactly. Before I go on to my next record, do you guys have anything else you want to say about Goodbye Yellow Brick Road?
There's a lot more to Yellow Brick Roads than The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Another powerful zinger.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to keep them coming.
Yep, I'm gonna do it after every one, I guess.
Yeah. This next record that I'm gonna show you is also from 1973. Let me just pull it up for you guys. It's in my closet, which is right up there. So just give me 1 minute. You guys can entertain him. You give him some show tunes, whichever you want. But just give me one good second.
What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor?
I mean, the album I'm thinking of, I think came out in '72. So I'm not sure if the album I think he might pull out is what I think it is.
1970. What the hell came out in 1973?
Because I'm thinking initially I thought he was gonna pull out Genesis Foxtrot, but I'm not sure. I think that was '72.
Yeah, that was 72.
You are correct. That was 72. This
Wait, is it a Yes album?
no, it's actually not even a rock album.
Is it King Crimson? Anything King Crimson?
Nope. It is Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder.
Ah, yes.
This I can, as a lot of you know, I am a huge diehard Stevie Wonder fan. And
No wonder.
yeah, no wonder. This album in particular is just I feel like it'd be a crime for me not to mention that this is one of those albums that I can listen to all the way through and not get bored. Like there's
That album puts you right onto a higher ground, quite frankly.
yeah, exactly. I'm just like I'm too high.
Yeah, gee, I wish.
Yeah. But,
Wrong album, Mason.
yeah. So, but All in Love is Fair.
True.
We got Greg from Red Sings the Blues. What's up, man? We're just talking about albums we could listen to all the way through. I'm talking about Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. And there's so much that I could talk about this album. Even the whole vinyl record in itself is beautiful. Like the way that the artwork is set up. It's
One of the
very,
best staples.
yeah. It's like very African-esque, but it's just like it fits the name and it fits, you know, what Stevie talks about on this record. Like
Oh yeah.
there's like there's so many like spiritual ideas, there's so many like societal ideas. Like Too High and Visions are two like Too High is a great song. Visions is a beautiful song where it just talks about like it's mostly like guitars in the background and Stevie singing. It's like, or is this a vision in my mind? Like it's just talking about like the spiritual ideas that go on through Stevie's mind, a lot of the energetic type of stuff. Living for the City, that's one of my all-time favorite Stevie Wonder songs where it talks about like the ideas of racism and the ideas of, you know, just growing up in the inner cities and all that stuff. And it's just definitely some top-notch stuff. Golden Lady, if you guys probably don't know that, like every single song off this album is a gem. Like even the singles,
Oh yeah.
yeah, the singles, Living for the City, Higher Ground, All in Love is Don't You Worry About a Thing, He's Mr. Know-It-All. Everything off this album, like including the singles and the deep cuts, are just so pleasing to listen to. If you guys haven't if you guys want a good suggestion for a deep cut Stevie Wonder song, Golden Lady.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, you've listened to that song before, Mike.
I had the album on CD. I don't own the record yet, vinyl record yet, but I have the CD. It's great.
Yeah.
Yet.
It's Golden Lady. That is a beautiful song.
Oh yeah. Now, is that what was the name of the song that you were talking about? Living about in the inner city and racism and all that again?
Oh, Living for the City.
Living for the City. Is that comparable to like some of the stuff that he talks about in Village Ghetto Land? I haven't really compared the two, but it just came to my mind now.
No, in Village Ghetto Land from Songs in the Key of Life, which I also have on vinyl, that actually talks more about the poverty that poverty that affects the inner cities and poverty that affects society in general.
Okay.
Just the grave details of that. Living for the City more or less talks about racism and just talks about, specifically how certain minorities were treated back in the day, or how the justice system or the judicial system treated minorities back in the day.
And still do.
I've always appreciated the heavy topics that he talks about. I mean, not that I would classify that as a rock album, but I mean that whole sphere always had very politically charged messages, and I feel like he definitely takes it to a more personal level, way more personal level, and I've always appreciated that it's not just it's not just a song. It's a very deep message, that's devoid from a lot of 70s pop crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Stevie Wonder was kind of balls to the walls with his music.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of the topics, like when it came to Motown's music in the early 70s, like Stevie Wonder's albums, Marvin Gaye's albums, even some of Smokey Robinson's albums, they were talk about really heavy topics, especially Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. Stevie Wonder with Inner Visions, and even with the albums before that, the album, The Talking Book, which I also have on vinyl.
Oh yeah, Talking Book. Yeah, everybody talks about superstitions from that, but there's so much more than that.
Oh yeah, there's so many songs, and I am strongly
unpopular opinion, but have any of you heard the Beck Bogart and Appice Superstition?
Yes, I love that version.
I have not.
That
actually.
rocks. It rocks to the moon and back. Listen to it, Mike.
Y'all will have to send me a link to it.
This might be an original release of Inner Visions, because it has the Tamla label on it instead of the Motown label.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty convinced this is one of the original releases of Inner Visions.
Most likely, yeah.
But I think,
and like similar to Stevie Wonder with these heavy topics, like a lot of people listen to, like, say a band like War, and they hear, "Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?" But like same thing, these politically very charged lyrics. Like, I mean, their song "The World Is a Ghetto," yeah, it's quite clear what they're talking about. But then you go to these upbeat songs, and they're like, "Oh, well." Unless you're really paying attention, you don't know that.
Yeah.
And I think that happens with Stevie Wonder a lot.
Yeah, I agree. The whole B-side, I think the whole B-side, besides "Don't You Worry About a Thing," just talks about nothing but political. "Don't You Worry About a Thing" and "All in Love Is Fair." The whole B-side is just mostly political and spiritual topics. Like "Higher Ground" talks about the ideas of reincarnation. "Jesus, Children of America" talks about the inner city life and just how people are treated, or how society in the US went on, and just how Jesus looks at, or just more religious kind of looks at how people shouldn't be discriminated against because of their social class or their identity or anything like that.
Right.
And he's Mr. Know-It-All, the closing song from Inner Visions. That's actually about Richard Nixon.
Did not know that.
Yeah, that was because this album came out in 1973, which was a year
Ah,
after
yes.
the Watergate scandal, which was in 1972. And I can honestly say there isn't a song similar to the previous album that I mentioned. There isn't a single song off this album that isn't good.
Oh yeah, it's not my favorite Stevie Wonder album, but by God, is it good?
Mhm. I would say I'm torn between this album and Songs in the Key of Life, because Songs in the Key of Life is another album that is just like, again, every single song on it is good. And
Yeah.
there's so much more that I could say about this. I believe Stevie played almost every like main instrument on this album as well. Like he played in Higher Ground, I believe he played almost every instrument, believe, on Higher Ground. Yeah. All other instruments played by Stevie on Too High, Don't You Worry About a Thing, He's Mr. Know It All. All instruments played by Stevie on Living for the City, Higher Ground, and Jesus Children of America.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, like I think for that time, for an artist like an artist of of this status to be playing every single instrument on this album is just like
Yeah.
um before we go on to the next and last set of albums that we'll talk about, or we'll go back to Mason for this last rotation, is there anything you guys want to say more about this album, about Intervisions?
You pretty much knocked out everything that I even had the ability to say about that album. So
Uh,
the only thing I could say is similar to Aerosmith and the Beatles to come together. I actually heard the Red Hot Chili Peppers version of Higher Ground first.
Same here, to be honest. I've heard the Red Hot Chili Peppers version before I heard Stevie Wonder's version. But,
And I think the Red Hot Chili Peppers do a good version of that.
oh yeah, they have their own spin to it, which that I can very much respect.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the Red Hot Chili Peppers album Mother's Milk is one of their best anyway, but
I haven't listened to the album. I've only listened to a couple of their stuff from the 90s, Stadium Arcadium, and that's about it.
Actually, if I'm being honest, I really like One Hot Minute. I thought that
I love
album
One Hot Minute.
like rocked, man. I mean, I know it was probably because of Dave Navarro, but
From Jane's Addiction.
yeah,
dude, One Hot Minute is the most underrated album in Red Hot Chili Peppers discography.
With no doubt.
Actually, we're not talking about No Doubt and Gwen Stefani right now.
Oh, yeah. But I'm gonna put this album back. While I do that, Mason, do you want to, for your last album that you want to bring up, what do you have in mind?
well, see, I'm gonna have to pick. I had two more,
Yeah, me too.
but I guess if I had to go with one, it would be Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Siamese Dream.
Some how do I it's definitely not completely my cup of tea, the whole 90s grunge thing. I mean, recently I've been really into it. I've been really into Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam. And that's all great. You know, I could more or less take it or leave it. But there's something special about that one album, Siamese Dream, that I don't think really anything else that the Pumpkins have put out, and plus Billy Corgan is kind of an asshole. Their Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness was okay. Adore was okay, and anything after Darcy Retzky left isn't good anyway. But this one singular album where they took this like heavy metal mystique thing and combined it with like psychedelia and dream pop and shoegaze. I think it makes for something that really wasn't really in existence at that time. I mean, you had all these pissed off grunge guys from Seattle like whining about how they like lost their girlfriends and they wanted to kill themselves. And you had these guys come out and put out something that has that, definitely does, but then you mix it with all this like psychedelic stuff that I adore to no end. And there's not a single track on that album that I would pass up. I mean, even like the bonus tracks that they released afterwards, and tracks that weren't even supposed to appear on that album but were like created around the time of that album. Oh my god. All right, you got Cherub Rock, which opens the album, and it's just, I think it's nearly 7 minutes, and it's just a banger, right? You have Today, which is what everybody knows, you know, it's very it's poppy. You have oh, what's that other song? Come on, it'll come to me. Can't think of the title, but it will come to me. It's just executed in a way that I don't think was done outside of them at the time. And I mean, that whole album, it just has a very laid back feel, and when it does get hard, it gets hard. And I would it's been it's been in my rotation for a long time, and it's been like a slow discovery. Like, I started out with Today, loved that song, binged it for a long time, and then I heard Cherub Rock, and then all the other ones on the album. I mean, it just, I don't know. Still to this day, it like amazes me.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that Cherub Rock was what actually put Smashing Pumpkins on the map into more mainstream. But yeah, I must say, you're making me want to check out Siamese Dream, because I really never gave it a lot of attention. Melancholy has always been my go-to and one of my favorite albums of the 90s period, let alone the Smashing Pumpkins album. But now the way you're talking about it, I need to hear that again, because it's sounding like it's so much more than just the Cherub Rock that I know super well.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Cherub
Geek
Rock
USA. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say Cherub Rock is basically their Smells Like Teen Spirit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say so. But oh my good God, check out like Geek USA, right? It's this hard, disgusting song, and in the middle, like out of nowhere for no reason, there's like a 2-minute psychedelic break of just disgusting piles of reverb and delay and reversed guitars, and
So the Beatles, A Day in the Life.
yeah. Except that maybe a little slightly more structured, slightly.
Okay.
And then check out Soma, which is a 7, maybe 8 minutes of just a beautiful build-up to this, you know, like hard rockin' tune, and then right back down to just like space. I mean, this song, like if I had to define space, it would be this song, which I think I actually really like the title. They took it from an Aldous Huxley book. And in it, there's a drug called Soma that they use to escape. It's like a mild psychedelic or something.
Are you sure you're?
And I really.
Are you sure it's Brave New World and not George Orwell's 1984?
Yeah, no, it's Brave New World.
Oh, okay.
Not the Iron Maiden album.
No.
Unfortunately not. And then other tracks, Rocket always gets me. And what's the song that I couldn't think of? Luna, the ending track.
Let's see. There's Luna, Sweet, Space Boy, Mayonnaise. I think I've heard Mayonnaise before.
Mayonnaise. So is that an instrument?
Yeah.
No, horseradish isn't an instrument either.
I was about to say that's the track that comes after it, more horseradish.
And then after that, a little bit further on down the album, kicking. I want to do some kicking.
Maybe
Well-
if we just play quiet enough that nobody could hear us, they'll think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Whoa.
What's up?
Oh, hello.
Steven?
Hello, Steven.
We're just talking about albums. Mason's currently talking about the Smashing Pumpkins album Siamese Dream.
Yeah, Mason likes to smash pumpkins.
Yeah, no, that's what I do in my free time. Right next to throwing car batteries in the ocean.
Oh,
Everyone,
wow. That escalated to where I wasn't expecting it to.
everyone who heard that is probably thinking this.
Too bad that didn't kill me.
I asked how to play that because we were playing the Band Geeks. We were talking about the Band Geeks episode.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I know it's a weird album, like it's a weird pick, but for me, man, I don't know. Finally, after like a year of hearing bits and pieces of the songs, I mean, finally sitting down and listening to the whole thing, it just blew my mind. That's really my take on it.
All right.
Well, I will be listening to that within the next day or two. That's for sure.
You've piqued my interest into listening to the Smashing Pumpkins, so I'm gonna check that album out when I get a chance.
Golden.
I don't have too much of anything. I don't have too much to say about this album because I'm not very familiar with the Smashing Pumpkins.
Same.
But I was gonna say, is there anything that either of you guys want to say?
I'm good. I'm in the same boat.
All right. Mike, what is your next and last album that you want to talk about?
Yeah, if I'm going to do the last album, I'm going to do the album of the two that I had for my final ones that I have more history with. This is probably not an album one would think of to be a flawless perfection album by this act, but it's one of the top two for me. And depending on the day, it's one or the other, but it's both perfect. They're both perfect, and you'll know what other one is once I pull out the album and show you the artist. But I'll tell you, on finding this on vinyl record, it took me so long, but I'm finally happy I finally got it within this past year. And that'd be Michael Jackson's Bad.
I actually don't have that on vinyl. I only have Thriller on vinyl.
Oh, Thriller is the other one. That's I didn't know which one I was going to pick, but you know what? Bad I have a little bit more history with as a whole, and I could, you know what? I could give more. Thriller, it's obvious why, but this I could talk about more and all that. And great gatefold. I mean, not the best gatefold ever, but it's a cool one. So, I mean, if you just talk about smacking you in the face with putting the stylus on record, bum 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 bum, dum 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 dum, opening the track Bad. I mean, Michael Jackson is bad on that song. Other ways too, depending on what you think of him, but we're not going to go into that. That song, it's just great. Something that's actually interesting about the Michael Jackson Bad album, before I get into more music like stuff in here, I actually only heard this on CD for the longest time. And then I got to compact cassette, and then I got the vinyl record. So I was in my senior year of high school, and I got the cassette version. Had it in my 2001 Chevy Suburban that I had at the time. I had a CD deck and a CD player. It was so beautiful. And I was listening to this album, and I'm just like, Smooth Criminal played, and then I went right back to Bad on side one. And I was like, wait, what? Because for those of you who don't know, and I didn't even know this until I had to look it up after I heard the cassette version. The song Leave Me Alone was a CD bonus track, and I never even knew it.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Holy crap.
And you just leave me alone, leave me alone. Yeah, no. I mean, that's not on here. You see that? Smooth Criminal, and then it's over. Smooth Criminal, to me, is kind of an abrupt ending, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
For the longest time, Smooth Criminal was my favorite Michael Jackson song. Maybe still is to this day. I don't really know. But this has a lot of love songs on it, which is kind of nice. I mean, everybody goes to like what's his name of that song that he did with Paul McCartney? The Girl Is Mine.
Yeah, from Thriller.
Yeah, from Thriller. Like everybody thinks of that with Michael Jackson as a love song, or when he was in the Jackson 5, I Want You Back.
Mhm.
But you know, the way you make me feel, and I just can't stop loving you.
I love that song so much.
Oh,
I just can't
there's-
stop loving you.
and if I stop, I'll tell you just what will I
I
do.
just can't stop loving that song. How about that?
Facts, boy. Facts, boy. But even the stuff that are deep cuts on this are just perfection. The song "Man in the Mirror." Everybody knows that song, but it has one of the most obscure key changes, but it works so perfectly. I can't exactly remember offhand what the keys are. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but it's just like, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make that change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Oh yeah, like that's an intense key change.
Yeah.
Chills every freaking time. It is just musically great. Go ahead.
I feel like each song strikes a like particular nerve, like a nerve that where it needs to be, like an emotional, like it strikes an emotional chord. Like each song has like a dynamic feel to it where it's like you can't help but love each song. Like especially Man in the Mirror. Like a lot of the songs, I think Bad another fun fact. Bad the Michael Jackson album, that's in the Guinness Book of World Records for most #1 singles on an entire album.
Yes.
And a lot of the songs are overplayed, but they're overplayed for a good
Yeah, I
reason.
was gonna say no. I'll take all these songs being overplayed versus Stairway. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love Stairway too, but I'll overplay the crap out of these over Stairway. Maybe it's because I've just heard Stairway so many times, and I mean I've heard these two, and I just don't get sick of this like I can Stairway. But
Mhm.
and then Smooth Criminal, I mean, I mean, it goes back to the bass. I mean, I know. I mean, clearly, LA, you're very familiar with this album. Mason, I'm not sure if you are, but as a bass player yourself, you would appreciate this album.
Yeah, I believe Nathan East plays on one of the songs off of Bad. And
That no.
Yeah, no, I can easily, one of the first comments I would make about that album is, holy crap, like the bass going on.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very precise. You know what I mean? Like it's not all over the place. It going back to making a statement. It makes a statement in the riffs on each of those songs, and it's almost like especially on Bad, right? I mean, good God, it's groovy, it's funky.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the whole album has instances of just that funk type of line being laid down, and oh my God, I love the shit out of it. I mean,
Literally, it's like all the bass lines on this will cut you like a knife.
Mhm. I think one thing that I could always appreciate out of Michael Jackson's music is the groovy bass that he's known for, the groovy bass that it's known for.
Yeah.
Like
Without a doubt.
yeah, like his first two successful solo albums, Off the Wall and Thriller, Louis Johnson plays on that, and he is arguably the greatest slap bassist of all time.
I'll have to. I that's something that you'd know better than me. I don't know.
Yeah, he played on almost all of Thriller. Some of Thriller's played on a synth bass, but I think most of it's played with an electric. I think. Let me see. I have it right here. I have the article right here. So.
Oh, we lost Mason again.
Oh man. We'll just wait for him to get back. But with Louis Johnson, he plays on tracks 1 to 9 on Thriller. Sadly, he does not play on Bad, which is a shame, but I think that's still a groovy album. I think it's still a great album.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely agree. Like, it's one of those albums that not a single song is bad. You could probably listen to it and not get bored.
Yeah.
It's a fun album regardless. Like, even the songs that aren't singles, like
Like Speed Demon.
yeah, Speed Demon. There's Speed Demon. Just Good
Librarian
Friends,
Girl. Oh
Liberian.
yeah, friends.
Yeah, Just Good Friends. That was the duet that he did with Stevie Wonder.
Hmm.
And I really love how I love how that is. It's a nice groove, a groovy song. What's another?
And speaking of Nathan East, wasn't he in the modern jazz group Foreplay?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. He also played for artists like Eric Clapton, Chick Corea. He even played for Toto. I think he played during Toto's last tour. It was either him or it was the second to last tour that Toto played in.
Oh, okay, I don't know. I just thought they had Africa play for them all.
Yeah. Well, so, fun little fact: some of Toto played on Thriller.
Did not know that. But Thriller, I mean, this is fairly well known at this point. But for those who don't know, Eddie Van Halen was actually the guitar soloist on Beat It.
Mm-hmm. The guy who did the riff for Beat It was Steve Lukather from Toto.
Oh, okay.
I believe the rest of Toto played on that song, and they played on Human Nature.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's
Darling, that is human nature. And you give me that ring.
I would also argue. I know that was also on your list as well, but I think Thriller is also another album that I can listen to all the way through and not skip an entire song.
Oh, easily.
Yeah,
Easily.
definitely even the songs that aren't singles are just worth a listen. Definitely worth the listen.
There's not even many songs off Thriller that weren't singles.
Yeah, the only songs that weren't singles, I would say there are "Baby Be Mine" and "The Lady in My Life." I think those are the only songs off that album that aren't singles.
I think you're right. Yeah, wow.
Overall, like, I think that was quite a unique and enjoyable era for Michael Jackson, both Thriller and the Bad era. Like, I think that was like where he really like became his own person and became like the singer that we know and love today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Before he became dangerous.
Yeah.
A couple years later.
We just got to keep up with these zingers, man.
No, I don't have any zingers right now. I don't have any little pastries on me. Sorry. Remember when zingers used to exist? I don't even think they make those no more.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Before Michael Jackson was dangerous, he was bad.
And before he was bad, he was thrilling everyone.
Yeah, he was a thriller. He was a thriller.
Yeah, he was a killer thriller.
Yeah.
Tonight and every night.
Yeah.
And then he was off the wall with Ben, of course. And then you can't forget about the fact that he was with the Jackson 5.
Yeah. But in between Off the Wall and, the Motown era, he was forever Michael.
Oh, yeah. He was forever Michael, without a doubt. And while he was forever Michael, he was everybody's sugar daddy.
Mm-hmm. What was I gonna say? But his career ended. His career ended when he was invincible. We can't forget that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Which is a very underrated album. Not many people pay attention to that one, but that's a good one too.
I agree. I actually really like that album. I think they have some great songs. I wouldn't say it's an album that I would listen to all the way through and not skip a song, but it's still a very good song.
An album. And The Break of Dawn and Rock My World, I believe, are the two singles off that. But
Yeah.
Good stuff. I wonder if Mason's coming back.
Let me shoot him a text. I know he was having some difficulties, but let me see if he texted.
Maybe this time his computer died if he was on a laptop or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we interrupt this broadcast for a brief text messaging. Rip Alistair back.
Yeah, definitely.
Rip in peace.
I hope Mason isn't doing this with his Wi-Fi.
Gathering information ahead of time is also part of the test. Definitely should have found another classmate. Why didn't I think about that before?
I would say at this point he might as well just restart his Wi-Fi, and that'll be good.
Yeah, Mason, if you're watching, restart your Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I don't have too much to say about Bad. I don't have too much to say about Bad or anything else to say about Bad, but do you have anything you want to say?
Nah, I got nothing else to say about Bad. Is that, I mean, you could say it's not a bad album.
Yeah, Bad is not bad.
There you go. What did you say your final album is, Mr. L.A.?
My final album, if Mason comes back as well, he will also vouch for me on this. My final album that I will be talking about is Fire and Water by Free.
Oh yeah.
That is their third studio album, which I know I just in the beginning talked about an album by a band that Paul Rogers was in, another band that Paul Rogers was in. This is the first band that Paul Rogers was in.
Yes.
There's definitely a lot of gems from Free's discography, but this one in particular is definitely Fire and Water. Fire and Water is hands down my favorite Free album. And
like most people still.
Yeah. But most people know of this album because of the song All Right Now, which I believe is their most famous song.
It is.
Yeah.
I most certainly think it is.
Yeah. It is. It definitely has that like arena rock sound, or that rock sound where it's like you could hear it on the radio and it's like really popular, like an AC/DC rock song.
Yeah.
Oh, Mason texted me. Let's see what happens.
What happened with Mason?
He said my Wi-Fi went sicko mode again.
Sicko mode? Huh.
I'm just going to tell him to try restarting it again, and I'll tell him what album we're talking about.
Okay. Bum, 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 dum. Speaking of bass again, I mean, All Right Now, that bass line, delicious.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not even like it's an overcomplicated bass line. Like, it's just mostly you mostly have to pay attention to the rhythm itself, which is I think is the only challenge, or I think is one of the few the only challenges of that song. And it's definitely a gem. Like I think every song on this album is a gem too. Like the title track, Fire and Water. It's just such a really hard driven, no nonsense type of song. That fire and water will make you their daughter. Like there's just like a unadulterated energy to that.
Yeah, I truly haven't heard this album rather than All Right Now, but like the way you were just saying it kind of gave me an Iron Maiden-esque vibe.
It might actually have that. I know Steve Harris was big into like classic rock and progressive rock.
Okay. Wow, big yawn. I'm not trying to yawn here, but apparently I'm yawning.
That's all right. Yeah,
it's all right now.
Yeah, it's all right now. Maybe it's all right now. Mason and I talked about this on Wednesday because we were doing an open discussion on underrated guitarists. Paul Kossoff is definitely an underrated guitarist. Like, I don't think he's as talked about as a lot of other guitarists from his era, like say Jeff Beck or or, or Pete Townsend from The Who.
Oh yeah.
Like, but I would say that he's definitely up there, or even Jimmy Page. Like, he's definitely, I would say he's up there with Jimmy Page in quality. You probably have better knowledge of that kind of stuff because you play the guitar and you're.
Yeah. The thing with Jimmy Page, I mean, even though he's great and I think he's fantastic, the problem with Jimmy Page is he's very sloppy. I feel like, I mean, I don't know much about Free and the guitar technique and what they do and all that stuff, but the little bit I know, it's spot on and it's clean. Don't get me wrong, I love the dirt and grit of Zeppelin and what Jimmy Page's sloppiness brings to it. It adds a unique element that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
But high esteem and a high regard, I think that what's the name of the guitarist from Free again? You said
Paul Kossoff.
Paul Kossoff. Yeah, Kossoff is at the same playability level and all that stuff as Jimmy Page and should get just as much recognition. However, I think that he is better technologically in regards to picking than Jimmy Page.
Yeah, and I love it the way his chord structures go. I'll try and play. I'm gonna play an isolated guitar track. Hopefully, I won't get Beatoed when this happens.
Beatoed, yeah. I hope you don't get Beatoed, but you know, I mean, if they're gonna Beato away.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope not.
But I noticed there was like a chord pattern that he does on this song with. I love the way that this A chord sounds. I'll have you take a listen. Like, I love that way that sounds, and it's like it's supposed to be like an A5 or an A major chord because I think
Yeah.
at the second phrase he added a major third to that A.
Yeah.
It's just so rich, like the way that guitar sounds.
People make fun of musicians for only using a couple chords sometimes, but I mean, this is a prime example of a well-known and loved song that just ever so slightly modifying one chord.
Yeah, and it's mostly like him. It's just him messing around with the A, and then throughout the song, it's a very four on the floor beat, like the.
Oh yeah,
and I love the way it sounds with just the guitar, and the vocals and the drums, and then the bass coming in the chorus is just like it was just like a perfect amount of space adding to the whole song. Like, it adds dynamics to it. It's a perfect A and B section, I would say.
I would agree.
I think what really makes this album shine in particular is just the fact that each instrument complements each other and there's enough space in between so that each instrument doesn't sound like it's being overbearing. Like, another example, I'll see if I can find it, is the song Mr. Big from not the band Mr. Big, but the song that the band was got their name from. Let me see.
You mean the song Mr. Big by Mr. Big from the album Mr. Big? No.
Actually, that song, their cover is on, I believe their cover is on Bump Ahead. They actually do have a cover of Mr. Big.
Yeah, I don't know what album it's from, but
let me see. And Andy Fraser, I also mentioned last week, he's one of the most underrated bass players out there that ever existed. Let's see if I can find it. And just to put this out there, I love the way the Gibson basses sound strictly for their low end. And at that part, it's like while the bass is doing that, the guitar does the and then the bass it's just like it's like a puzzle or like it's like a puzzle or it's like ingredients to a dish.
Okay.
All of these all these guys playing together were all the ingredients to this like dish that's like well prepared, well thought out, perfectly timed and everything. And just it was something immaculate. And I'm going to be all bass elitist, but this is one of the first albums to feature a long bass solo.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it. See if I can find it. Just trying to get right here. Oh, here we go. Just I would love to play the whole version while it's on on this podcast just because of how much I love that song and how much I love this whole album. But just because there's so much energy, so much pure energy from this band that it can only be described that can only be shown to you if you listen to this album. And
Well, I guess I know what album you're giving me for my birthday, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I will that'll probably be my next vinyl search is Fire and Water.
Nice.
Was I gonna say that hearing that with the solo, like it's just so much to describe that only listening to it could hear it. Like I know that like it's a very vintage, it's very old fashioned sounding, but it's just for what they were doing when you take to account what they were doing on that album, it was very ahead of its time. Like to hear a song, think about it. In a song in 1970, to have a 2 or 3 minute bass solo, like that's almost unheard of.
Oh yeah, that's still unheard of unless it's jazz.
Yeah, if it's jazz, then that's a different story. If it's anything that Billy Sheehan or Victor Wooten plays, it's unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so much that can be said. I'll name you a couple songs that you could listen to. Fire and Water, that was the opening song on the album. Oh, I Wept, and Don't Say You Love Me. The Don't Say You Love Me is it's a ballad, and it's about 6 minutes long. It's in 6/8 or 12/8. I don't exactly remember. I believe it's in 12/8.
Okay.
But that it just everything is just so subtly put together. It's like it's beautifully arranged, I would say.
Okay.
Only listening to it would describe like just everything about this album. The music, the arrangements are just timed so perfectly.
I'll eventually be hearing this album, so I definitely want to check this out.
Yep. It's Free's third studio album, Fire and Water. And yeah, it's from their third studio album that came out in 1970.
Okay.
I would definitely recommend checking out other Free albums from their discography. I would say that
I guess you can
check
say we're free to do so.
yeah, you're free to do so. Another great Free album that I've listened to. Oh, Mike.
You there?
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, it just glitched out.
You're good. Another great Free album that I would recommend you check out is Free at Last, which was their second to last studio album, and it came out in 1972.
Okay.
Which I believe that was when they shortly reformed, and that was the last album to have Andy Fraser on bass. But it's another great. I would recommend that too. And
Well,
that's
that
all.
came out in 72.
Yeah, that one came out in 72. Fire and Water came out in 70, in early 1970, I believe, or earlier, mid 1970.
Okay.
But one song, definitely check out Mr. Big, and I just think that whole album worth checking out, start to finish. Definitely start from Fire and Water to the last song, which is All Right Now.
You mean you don't want us to listen to Through the Fire and Flames?
Nah, I mean, unless you want to, you're free to do so.
Yeah, I guess I am. I'm
gonna try and give Mason a call, see if we could get his final thoughts. I know he's having some Wi-Fi trouble, but
Yes, hello.
hey Mason, we're about to do the final thoughts, but do you have anything you want to say about Fire and Water? I know you've been having some Wi-Fi issues.
Can everybody hear me?
Okay.
Oh, we hear you.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, all right. I'm giving a over the phone. All right. So Fire and Water. That is it's an album that I discovered in I don't know, like I want to say I was in like 7th grade. I discovered that album, and oh my god, it was one of the first albums that like hit me. Well, besides, I want to say Paranoid,
which came out the same year.
True.
Yeah, they did, and oh my god, it at the time. I mean, I didn't understand much about music or anything. Honestly, but I was a guitar player and I had to play a couple of blues licks, and I don't know, man. That album is full of just jams. I mean, not even the Paul Kossoff. I mean, holy crap! The bass player is like
Andy Fraser.
Yeah, Andy Fraser, and he just. Besides, I want to say besides Cream, that was one of the first bands that I had heard that had a bass player that played like that, you know? It could lay it down and almost kind of treat it like a lead instrument. And, I mean, crap, Mr. Big and the break on All Right Now. I mean, come on, right? Those are like two of the biggest impactful moments in that album for the bass guitar. And not even just those two. I mean, Paul Rogers is like one of the best, if not the best vocalist in rock. I mean, and then Simon Kirke, I mean, I don't have much to say about him, but you know, he played it and kept it down. I mean, I was obsessed with that album for like a whole summer. I listened to it nonstop, and if I had to give my piece on it, it's that "Oh I Wept" is probably my favorite song off that album.
Mhm. I definitely see what you mean. I don't really know what my favorite song on that album from this album is, because they're like every song is great in its own way. Fire and Water, the title track, is Fire and Water is great. Oh I Wept is phenomenal. Remember's great. Let's see, yeah, Remember, it's very bluesy. Heavy Load, that's when they incorporated the piano, I believe. I believe Andy Fraser played piano on that. Um Mr. Big, of course. I can't. You know how much you know how I feel about Mr. Big, about that song. Every I I think I've told you this, and I said this before on the podcast. Whenever I listen to it, like when I'm driving and when I'm in a car, when the solo comes on, I turn that ish up. You know I have to turn it up. Like I turn it up all the way, like the volume. Well, not all the way, but really like to where I really hear that bass solo where it goes boom 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 boom.
You turn it all the way up.
Beats are
Yeah.
going on and the volume going up.
Yeah. And Don't Say You Love Me is probably, I would have to say, the one song that really gets me, like really like has a special place in my heart just because of how much I love the way it's arranged, is Don't Say You Love Me. So I would say that would probably be my favorite song off Fire and Water.
Uh oh, what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Oh yeah, the title track. I really love the title track.
I agree. I love the title track too. It's great.
It's riffy to its core. I love it.
Yeah. And I like how the bass, like the bass and the guitar are very riffy, similarly riffy. They're not doing the same thing, but they're like, they're still they're similar, but it works. And it's like it's still one instrument is complementing the other.
Mm. Oh yeah, no, they all complemented each other. I mean, again, even outside of lead playing, most of their songs have that theme of making a statement. I mean, they do it pretty well. You know, between the four of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Good stuff.
All right. So I
I know we got short. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi committed sicko mode, but
Whoa. Sadness.
always happening. I mean, it was just, like he's the wizard of albums.
yeah. Yeah, we're probably just gonna get to the final thoughts on that. Do you have any final thoughts? Since we started with you on the albums, do you have any final thoughts on this whole topic?
My final thought would probably be that there's always more. I mean, I listen to a lot of albums, and there's definitely there's always continue to be more. That's for outside of just saying what's my favorite and collectively what's our favorite, or each of our favorites rather. I'd say that listening, you know, like constantly expand and don't. I would implore people not to listen to just songs. I would say like, you know, the art of the album is like pretty much null at this point, and it would really benefit, I think, to listen to an album the whole way through, because first of all, you get the full scope listening. And second of all, you're really depriving yourself of what an artist might be by just listening to one song. So, I know definitely in the more albums that I could play on repeat every single song, you know, and I'm excited for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually fairly excited about that too, and I'm glad we finally got this topic out of the way. I'm glad that, I was able to speak with you guys on this and, get a bit of an open discussion from, just this topic alone. And I'm glad that, we could go back and forth, and a lot of the albums that we brought up were very much we can all relate to or all listen to. Or we have all listened to them before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what'd you say?
They're very much in the, like, oriented uh, group and
Mm.
As Simon and Garfunkel would say, you got a groovy thing going, baby.
So, Mason, I'm gonna let you go for now. I'm gonna hear what Mike has to say.
oh, of course.
But thank you again for coming on. I'm sorry that you had to deal with all of that Wi-Fi issue. What?
Yeah, I'm way around, and I'm glad and that I could give my phone.
Yeah, of course, man. And by the way, you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh well, brother.
Wait, what?
Part of the course.
Ah, okay. But yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow, man.
All right, man.
I'll
I'll see you
catch you.
tomorrow, brother.
All right, I'll catch you later. All right, Mike, what do you have to say what are your final thoughts on this whole topic?
Well, I would have to agree with Mason in regards to that. The musical album is a piece of art just as much as the individual songs. And I feel like people definitely need to pay attention to the full album. The single has always been the main focus of the music industry since popular music has become a thing. However, you're missing a whole lot if you're not paying attention to a whole album. Some of an artist's best works could be deeper cuts. Not always necessarily the case, but many times can be. Because many times an artist may not even like the song that's their biggest hit, or was not even a song they wrote, but a label may have told them, record this. See how you like it. And then it's get released and it's popular, and they don't necessarily even like the song that made them popular. Like, you hear the song by the Beastie Boys, It's Your Right to Fight, to Party, and all that stuff, which was used in a way that the band didn't intend it to, and then they got sick of their own song, and they're like, well, why bother? I think that it's very important to be able to have albums that are great all the way through, because, sometimes hit singles can't be played on the radio songs that are great cannot be played on radio because it wouldn't make sense alone. And much of Pink Floyd's discography is a very prime example of that, because the most popular albums by Pink Floyd are Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall. If someone is to listen to the song The Trial on the radio, most people are going to be spinning their heads at wondering what the heck is going on. The same with, Dark Side of the Moon is not the best example, because many of those songs actually can go solo, but the reason point I'm trying to make. Like, if you were to choose like random songs from Pink Floyd's discography, it won't work.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why The Happiest Days of Our Lives and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 are paired together, because one without the other, you could do Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 without The Happiest Days of Our Lives, but it's nice how they combine into each other with the Roger Waters between we don't need no, like, it fits great.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people don't pay attention to albums and just kind of pay attention to hit songs, and even in today's day, playlists. But give an album a shot if you haven't. There are some albums out there that are making their ways today. Any album by Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran's fairly popular, for example.
Even Harry Styles albums are really popular. Like
Harry Styles, Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande to some extent. But like, check out the whole thing. You might be surprised at what you find.
yeah, you might end up enjoying the whole album. You might end up thinking like, wow, there's more music that I can listen to, not just these singles off this album, and not just this singular song where it's like, oh, I like this, but I don't like his other. I've never listened to his other discography. Maybe one of these days, take a chance. Why not listen to some of their discography or what they have for. Listen to what else they have in their discography. You might end up liking it even more than the songs you've already listened to.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
my final thoughts with that would be that would be the takeaway. Just take a chance, listen to an album you've never listened to before. Like, for example, I started listening to Free. Free to get out of my Chicago listening craze, because I was listening to Chicago nonstop, and I was like, I need to listen to something else. Believe it or not, Free got me out of listening to Chicago, because I started listening to the album Free at Last. I already listened to Fire and Water before, which I already fell in love with that album, but then I was like, I should listen to another Free album, and I listened to Free at Last from their 1972, their fifth album, and I ended up loving that album too. So,
Would you say that it was a hard habit to break, getting out of listening to Chicago a lot?
yeah, and I went and I said to Free, "You're the meaning in my life. You're the inspiration."
Gotta have you near me.
Yeah, I want to have you hear me saying.
We're bad. We need to stop.
Yeah, we're getting too punny.
Yeah, otherwise, by the time this stream is over, it'll be Saturday in the park.
Yeah. After that, and this stream will be nothing more than old days.
Yeah. And then we'll be back to the beginnings.
Yeah. And I'll forget the questions. They're probably 60, 67, and 68. I think that's about how many questions were.
I don't know. I kind of thought it was 25 to 6 to 4, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is these puns really make me smile.
Yeah, just you and me.
Yeah. But these podcasts are really making us feel stronger every day.
Just to see each other smile.
Yeah. All right.
It's bad. We can go on and on.
Oh yeah, we could go on for another 15 minutes. But,
Just with puns.
yeah. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one. If you want to see updates regarding the podcast, look back to my Instagram at LA Perez Works. I will usually post updates regarding the podcast on my story. So definitely look out for that. And definitely go on Instagram to follow Mike from Retrospin Vinyl. Follow his Instagram, Retrospin Vinyl. And he also has another Instagram, Mike Guitar Player 07. So definitely check those out and give him a follow. And subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to both channels of his, being the Mike Guitar Player one, the Mike Guitar Player channel, and the Retrospin Vinyl, which I will put in the description.
Thank you.
Anytime.
And you can't forget about Mason, too. I don't know if you tagged his stuff in there, but...
Oh, yes, of course. He has, I believe, 2 Instagrams. And I've tagged him in my story, so just... let me just...
You'll just show it on the screen, yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, Mason leaves because his internet goes off and we forget to add his Instagram. No, I'm kidding.
Instagram at Basin Mel, which is just like his the first letter of his last name and his first name switched together. And if you want to see some of his covers and some of his works, check out Instagram at Muasonic.
Do it.
Yep. definitely check it out. And one more thing, Cash App $Louis ATM 929. No stranger to money. If you're welcome to donate any type, it will go back into the podcast. So anything is greatly appreciated. It's obviously up to you on when you want to do that, but or if you want to do that, that's really your choice. You don't have to, but if you do, it's greatly appreciated.
Whether it be 1 penny or 5,000 pennies.
Yeah, exactly. But guys, I will see you on Monday for the DMX commemoration post or the memorial stream about DMX. So definitely stay on the lookout for that. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and as always, stay tuned.
Rock and roll.